Okay, group, welcome everybody. If you found this video, chances are you have an interest in American Changer hoppers, the green stripe. Anybody know why they're called the green stripe? You guys can figure it out. Anyways, what we're going to do today is, guys, these are the hoppers that came out in the late 90s. They used them up until about 2015 or 16 before they went to the yellow stripes. And still a lot of these out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up one of these and we're going to go through the cleaning process and step by step. So here's what we'll start with. I have my bench set up here where I spend a lot of my time. There's two sides to these hoppers. And what I'm going to do here, well, I think what I'll do here before I do anything is take off this diverter, which some have and some do not. Yeah, I knew I was going to be without my pliers here. Here's my better pair. It's kind of hard to get a nut driver in here. Alright, we have a little self-locking nut there to keep it from falling apart, and just comes apart like that. So anyways, that's a diverter. What it does, this is the left-hand side. It kicks the coin to the left. I always recommend, so you kind of know where you're at. Excuse me. Get a cup for your screws. Now, this side here, this is the workings. This is where our coin belt is, and I have no problem using a strong drill to take these apart. However, put them back in, unless you have a good feel for your own drill, be careful, because these screws only go into plastic. My favorite tool in the whole world for doing jobs like this, these are stainless, so the magnet does not work. I was going to show you how it just draws them right out, but anyways, these are stainless, so these, make sure they're loose. Now, this is kind of an important part of the disassembly. You have your plug-in here, which goes to your plate, and that stays with the main part of the hopper. Okay, I'm going to get these last two screws out here. This is our cover plate. Usually collects a little bit of dirt and dust throughout here. Now, this unit is extremely clean. This is, unfortunately, probably not the best example to start you with as far as doing a cleaning. Okay, now the first thing we see here is, I don't know if that's paper. Anyways, normally you find orange pieces of quarter wrappers. You can see here a little bit of wear on the idler gear. The belt only goes on one way, but we're going to show you that during the reassembly. Now, the section here, this is where our gears are. Once again, it only goes into plastic, these Phillips screws. They have changed that in the newer hoppers. They actually go into a threaded insert. So anyways, be sure you have your two screws here. We'll put them in our little bucket. Anyways, this is pretty clean, guys. This is they used what I'm just going to call axle grease. I can tell by the color. We are going to use a synthetic, a clear grease. We have found it lasts longer in due time. Now, the messy part. I always get a couple of napkins out here. And if you've got something like needle nose, or sometimes you can grab these gears on the outside and pull them out. Let's see if we have any luck. Sometimes not. Alright, so this is number one. There are, out of these 4 gears, there are 3 styles. The middle 2 are the same. Okay? Now I'm from the old school of building engines and race motors from way back in the day, and this is kind of like when you take your lifters out. You want to be sure, because of the way the gears wear, is don't mix them all up. In other words, these 2 go together even though this one goes back in an upside down fashion, so we don't want to necessarily mix them up. The base unit, the base gear is bigger. These 2 are identical. The top one is flat. Now, what I do is I clean this area out first. I get a napkin to throw away. I use a Q-tip. And what I'm going to do, so we don't completely bore you and this video gets to be an hour long, is I'm going to do that and then clean up my gears, get a little brake clean on them, and then we'll turn the camera back on. So, right back. Alright, changer mechanics. We get to the kind of the fun part here now. As you can see, I have our belt is disassembled and cleaned, and I have it in 4 sections. That'll go back together. I have our 4 steel gears plus our 1 belt drive gear, and then of course the idler gear. So let me try and zoom in on this so you can see what I'm doing. Now I gotta stress, this was just a super clean green stripe hopper. I mean, it was really, they don't normally come in like this. They're normally just horrible. Anyways, so let's start with our biggest gear, and what I do is I get my synthetic grease here. I think this is sold, if I'm not mistaken, in the bicycle hobbyist groups. I'm sure we got it on Amazon, but you don't want to have a ton of grease, and this grease will spread itself around once it gets moving. So there's our first one. There's our second one. Keep in mind these center gears are identical, and we did keep them separate. We knew that was the second one to go on, and then the one that's going to go next will be the number 3 gear. Okay, and that's going to go upside down. As you can see, I'm putting the grease on the big part of the gear. You don't necessarily have to worry about this inner gear because it's going to grease itself. Okay. Whoops, what am I doing? I had myself second guessed. Alright, and then the flat gear, this flat part, as opposed to those 4 tabs that just hold grease, the flat part goes down. If you turn it over, it's still going to work, but it may wear the gears out faster because that's not the way they have spent their whole life turning. Okay, now this is our belt drive gear. I like to put just a little grease on the shaft here. This gear will fill up due to the grease on the outside there. Okay, now we'll get our hands cleaned off. The cover needs to be clean. You don't want any foreign matter in there. It only goes on one way. Now there are 2 little openings, little holes there. Well, those fit those stainless steel shafts. Now there's no forcing here, okay? It should fall into place. If you have to force it, you got something wrong. Something's not lined up correctly. Okay, we go into our bucket of screws here. And these are a little tricky if they're not. If they're zinc, they're okay. If they're stainless, like these, little trickier, okay? I've done a couple of them, so I kind of know the quick method. Now, this idler gear potentially would go on next. However, it's not going to go on because we don't have the belt on yet. Okay? Now, in cleaning these guys, I'm going to hold this up for you here. These little tracks here, these have to be clean. Okay? I stick my rag in there with my small screwdriver and some foam. I use a window cleaner. People always ask me what I use to clean. This is just one of a zillion cleaners. This is not abrasive. It's not harsh. It doesn't hurt your hands. I'm sure you can buy this at any Home Depot or Lowe's. That's where I get it. But getting back to these little crevices here, what I do is I spray all this, which has been done, and then I put my screwdriver in a good quality rag that doesn't create lint, and I go all the way around there and I get all that clean. So now what we're going to do is we're going to reassemble our belt. These latch together. See if I can show you one. You just turn them sideways, and don't put your belt on inside out because it can happen. Okay, it goes this way. The end one, you have to apply a little bit of, just a little bit of force, not much. Okay, now, I remember one time I got one of these hoppers in, and it wouldn't spit any coins out, and it would run. So I figured the sensor board was bad. But anyways, you see these, what I call shark's teeth? They go down. Okay, it'll fit both ways. Okay, what did I drop? Oh, I dropped my idler gear. Okay, so now what we're going to do is those little tabs have to fit all the way around. Every tab has to be in, and the only way you're going to know these tabs are in correctly and they're not, is you spin it. Okay, and then you can always find the one I'm just looking down at how they go in. One of them must be, maybe I have them all in. Oh, I guess I was just hitting the plug there. Okay, so it's got to be free. If one of these tabs is not in the slot, it's not going to spin around like that. It's going to get hung up. Okay? Now, the next little trick is we don't want to lift this out because then we potentially have a tab that may come out, and once we put this idler gear on, unless we have power, we can't spin this. Okay? So this may take you a couple of tries to get it right, but as you see, I never lifted that tab out of there because I could have problems later. Okay, so now what I'm going to do real quick, guys, I'm going to clean off the cover, which I have failed to do. I'm going to take it outside, and then we're going to reassemble the hopper, see how we did. Okay, reassembly time for what I like to call the working side, or maybe the A side. Okay, this cutout is for your plug, and that little cutout there, that's if you reverse the sides and had your harness come out of the other side. That would be for a rear load changer. Okay, so what I normally do here, and I'm going to sit down as I do this so I'm at eye level, is I set it like so, and then I make sure that that plug goes in nice and squarely, okay, which it is. Now, once again, no forcing. See, nice clean line, there's no space. If you have a space anywhere, don't force it other than Just a little tap. If it doesn't go down, if you have a space, take it off. Something is not right. Okay? So now we have our 9 screws. And what I do, and it's probably overkill, is I tighten these and I go around in a circle, just like if you're putting a spare tire back on or if you're tightening a set of cylinder heads. You don't start at one side, you start in the middle. Okay, so I go here and I go over here, back to this corner. You want to be sure nothing ever lifts up. It can happen. I think everything that can happen on hopper reassemblies and rebuilds has happened to me at one time or another, but that's how we learn. Okay. Now everything on this side is self-sufficient. In other words, nothing is going to fall out once I take the other side off. Okay? So what let's do here is I have a couple studs here that have the wires to the sold out plates. Okay, those have to come out. And they are either going to be 11/32 or 5/8. Okay, in this case they're 5/8. Now these are pretty easy to work with. I'll get my hand out of the way in a minute because there's a stud that goes in there. Okay, with a nylock. You kind of have to hold the stud by the wire or else the whole thing could turn, but you'll get the hang of it. Okay, so we take out the second nylock. We'll put it in our parts. Now, all you got to do, take off the wires. Okay, these have to be fished through this opening. And once again, these go to those brass plates in there that we'll call our sold out plates. They detect whether we have coins in there. Okay, now this side only has 5 screws. And because they're a little spread out and they are all recessed very deep, I do a couple at a time for the simple fact that if I tip the whole thing up, I don't want to lose them all. This one here I may not have I may not have gotten it all the way unscrewed. I just give it a tap like that, you'll get the screw out. Then I go usually to the middle one. Get it to fall free, and then I can do second to the last one, like so. Okay, now the last one's a little more important because we don't want the whole thing to fall apart on us. Okay, so I'm holding this to the other side. I got the screw out. Okay, there's 5. Let's set those aside. Now, here's kind of the secret, not so much to disassembly, but to reassembly. Okay, what we're going to do here, this just comes straight out. Okay, like so. The reason it has to come straight out is it'll catch this sensor board. Okay, now these wires come right out like that. And what they did is they were fished through that slot. That's how we're going to have to fish them back through. It's back in there, but that'll be in just a second. So now we have the electronic side showing. Sensor board, they can go bad. They usually last 10 to 15 years. The motor, I've only replaced a couple. The wiring, something to look at, because down here sometimes there can be a pinch. Okay, if the thing doesn't work, if you have a wire that's broken, guess what? You got to fix it. Okay, so I'll show you real quick how this sensor board comes out. This needs to be cleaned because there's an optic in there. There's 2 Phillips screws. Okay, this whole assembly lifts out like so. Now, see this part here with these little prism shaped optics? Those need to be cleaned with some window cleaner and maybe a Q-tip, a soft cloth, and the area, I'm trying not to drop these screws, I may as well put them in my hand. Don't worry about mixing this thing up, right side, upside down, whatever. The coins go through here. This is very clean. A lot of times on the down side there's a ton of residue. There's just very little here. We want to clean that up. And then take a soft Q-tip with a little bit of window spray on it and clean those 5 sensors. Now, once again, this only goes on one way. Okay, that's not the way. This is the way. It goes like that. Let me show you if I can. See the 2 screw holes there. Anyways, it just, when it goes back together, fits on like that. It has to come in this way for those screws to line up. You see those little notches there? There's one on both sides, even though you can't see that one. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to just do a little light cleaning here, and then we're going to reassemble this side, show you how this bottom side with the wires goes on, and right back at you. Okay, everything that's cleaned, everything that needs to be cleaned is cleaned. I'm going to put our 2 screws that hold our sensor board. Now guys, I tested this hopper off camera before I took it apart, because I always want to know how much of them works, if they're dead, if they're stuck. Anyways, this one worked, as you can see probably by how clean it was, so we don't have to worry about changing the sensor board because it is good. Now what we do is, this piece is commonly known as the shaker. Call it an agitator if you want. Okay, and it's got 2 parts. Whoops, comes out the other way. 2 parts. Okay, we want to put just a little bit of synthetic grease on that little guy. Doesn't need much. Could probably do it without it and nobody'd ever know the difference. Just kind of screw it in. Okay, now this is a mistake some people make. The reason they make a mistake is this tab right here has to go in that notch. I'm going to show you. I'm going to pick it up. I've gotten these in before where that tab, I know it's dark, is not in there. Okay, I'm going to try and hold this together without spilling everything. This tab, you see it? See if I can make it do what it's... Now I have no way to turn that. Anyways, that tab goes back and forth and it agitates the quarters. Okay, now another thing is, I want to have this connection parallel to left and right, and the reason I want to do that, because we have to put this together now. See the other end where it's going to mate up? That's a square drive and it goes left to right. Okay, so what we're going to do now, and I hope all this is going to be able to be shown on camera, but we need to fish our 2 wires through the slot that you can see daylight in. Okay, this is where a little probe with a hook on the end, which I'll show you, comes in handy. Okay, so we fish those through. They're both on the other side. And then we just kind of stand this guy up, okay? But always make sure these wires are pulled through pretty much as far as they can go, because the loose ends can end up getting snagged, okay? So now, it's a little bit tricky trying to be sure everything is on camera. Okay, we did a good job the first time. Okay, there's no spacing. No spacing here. And our two wires are through and they're free. They're not pinched. They're basically the same size. Okay. So now yeah, let's see where our screw went. There we go. I thought we lost one. Okay, remember here, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, I'm pretty good with my DeWalt. I kind of know how strong it is. Just upon contact. My other little guy is just a little too weak. Plus it's deep. Alright, we're almost done. I'm going to check those with a hand screwdriver. They're always right on the money. I haven't put even an eighth of a turn on any of those. Alright, now last but not least, we want to put our two wires back on the studs. There's a little opening here for this wire that goes on the right side. And I always say right and left because I'm looking at it there. So get our 5/16 out. There was some nuts that hold those studs. Before I put the wire on, I should have showed you, but I already did it. I just give them a little snug, just to be sure. Kind of hold the wire straight down so it doesn't come around when the nut bites it, like that. Okay, same thing, we just hold the wire from coming across. Alright guys, it's as simple as that. Now what I'm going to do, because my bench is a little small and I don't have the room, is other than putting a little bit of grease here, which I'll show you how I do it, just so the pins slide in and out if this hopper happens to sit in the same position for the next 5 years. Just go across them just like that. Synthetic. I'm a strong believer if you don't have to take out your hoppers on a daily basis, fill them up right where they are, because the pins, it's kind of a weak link. I don't want to say it's an issue or it's a problem. However, the less you have to muscle them in and out, then I just wipe off anything extra, because I hate to get grease all over everything. So guys, let me set up my test jig. We'll fire this up and we'll see how we did. Okay, final. We have everything hooked up. We have our hopper in place on its plate. Let's power it up. See how we did. Should read one hopper and maybe one validator is not there or failed, but one will work. Okay. What we do now is I like to put $1 in, and I have the hopper jumped with no coins, so it'll run. But I like to let it run a few seconds, okay? And I have 4 coins in my hand we'll test the sensors with. So let's let it go. Put our 4 coins in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice and smooth, nice and quiet. I can kind of tell after all this time what these are supposed to sound like. So anyways, we'll put a 5 in. Okay, 20. That way we leave an empty hopper on the shelf for our next customer, and there you have it, guys. A little bit time consuming. If you end up taking one apart and you can't get it back together, I always tell the people, save all the parts, put them all in a baggie and ship it to us, and we will do a good job for you. But as you can see, it's not rocket scientry. It's just a matter of taking a little time, a few tips, and there you have it. Need to do this, depending on your location, at least every 5 years if you have a real heavy spot. If you have a laundry facility with a ton of lint, probably every couple of years you at least need to put some grease to those gears. So guys, for now, Doug at Doug's World Tour Vending Channel. Green stripe hopper today. Out.